Welcome back to Kia's Cup of Cocoa. Today I'm going to be discussing how I bought my first house as a single mom.
Don't play with it, don't be dishonest. Still not understanding.
So last year in December was my 7-year home anniversary. And in honor of that, I would like to share 7 tips as to how I was able to buy a house as a single mom. The first tip I would give is to let go of the limiting belief that you cannot afford a house. Let the bank tell you that you cannot afford a house. Don't just go out here thinking, oh, well, I'll get an apartment or I'll settle for whatever because I can't afford what I really want. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I was going to be able to buy a house as a single mom. It just wasn't something that, for one, it wasn't something that I had saw being done. And it just wasn't something that I thought I could do. So when I went out and I was looking for apartments, I had a girlfriend tell me, and apartments were really expensive too. When I was looking to buy a house when I had my daughter, the apartments were really expensive. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend. My girlfriend who, she didn't have any kids at the time, but she bought a condo. And she was like, well, why don't you just buy? She wanted me to buy a condo, but when I started looking, I decided that a townhouse is better for me. But she was like, well, why don't you just buy a condo? You don't have to get an apartment. You know, if you can afford an apartment, you can afford to buy. So after she put that bug in my ear, that's when I started looking. And a few months later, I was able to buy this house, and that's where we're at. But I never would have even have taken the first step had I really didn't think that it was something that I could do. So I would always say, first and foremost, just don't let people tell you what you can or cannot do. Even when I was in the process of buying my house, people were telling me, oh, you can't afford a house. You can't afford a, and even if you could afford a house, you're not going to be able to get a house in a good neighborhood and next to a good school or any of those things. Like, just stop with the limiting beliefs. If you believe you can, you can. And even if you can't, there are certain steps that you can take that will help you be able to make it happen later on. And hopefully we'll touch base on that in a little bit. And I plan on touching base, not hopefully. I plan on touching base on that in a little bit. So my second tip would be getting on a budget. You're going to have to track your expenses. I would say do that for 1 or 2 months. And then after that, I would look and see what can be cut back on. You know, maybe you have a gym membership, as everybody tends to, that you really don't need. Maybe you could cut that out. Netflix, maybe you could, give that up for a little bit, whatever, because every little bit helps. And maybe there are things that you see that you can do at home. Just comb through your budget and see what it is that you can give up. You also want to save. Even if they say, like when you're going to get a house, they might say, oh, you might only need a certain amount of money to put down for the house. Always have more. I remember when I bought my house, I actually had to put down more than what I was told I needed. And then I realized that's how a lot of you run into these situations where it says, finances fell through. That's how that happens, because you're told one amount, and then when it comes to closing, there's other costs that you didn't account for, and now you have to pay for that. So luckily I did save a little bit more so I could have that. It still was a little bit of a stretch. I was trying to save money for furniture, and so when I moved out, I didn't have enough money to do all that stuff, but I had a house. You also don't want to be house poor. You want to make sure that, when you are doing a budget, you're not cutting everything out the budget, because some of that stuff you do need. Some stuff you can't budget. Some stuff, not you can't budget, but some stuff has to be in the budget. So make sure you're creating a realistic budget that works for you. All right, so now we're on step 3. I would say for step 3, go and get pre-approved. Like, I remember I used to watch those shows. I'm a millennial, so I grew up on those shows where they would go and buy a house, and the house was like $300,000, their mortgage was this much, and I'm thinking in my head, oh, well, I can pay that. The bank tells you what you can pay. So you might think, oh, I can get approved for X, Y, and Z, but then when you go to a bank and they look at your debt to income ratio, they might be like, nah, sis or bro, you can only afford, this much house. So make sure you get pre-approved. In addition to that, nobody's going to take you seriously without a pre-approval. So it's one to go get a pre-approval, so you see how much you how much you qualify for, and then also to have that when you're looking for a realtor or when you're out looking at houses, so people take you seriously, because now it's like, oh, I have a bank that's saying they're willing to loan me this much money. So, you know, if you don't have that, nobody really knows what they can go off of or what they can offer you. I would also say when you're looking for getting a pre-approval, I know when I bought my house, I had, when I bought my house, you could go to 3 different mortgage lenders and they would run your credit and it would count as one hard hit. Now, recently I went into Chat GPT and I asked, what do you do now? And it said that you can go to an unlimited number of institutions to apply for a mortgage within a 30-day period. I wouldn't do that. I would probably zero in on a good, I don't know, 7, maybe 5 to 7, and maybe not even 7, maybe like 3 to 5 again. But zero in on some, look at their products, look at what they're offering. Some people offer down payment assistance. Some people offer, you know, those loans where it's like, you know, we'll offer 20K down assistance. And, you know, for, you know, some people that might not work. Some people it might. And you also need to really read up on that as well, because if it's saying, oh, we'll offer 20K, sometimes there's stipulations. A lot of the times when they're doing that, it's for an up and coming area. So you might have to live in there for like 5 to 10 years. Like, oh, you can't rent it out, you can't move, or you might have to pay some of it back. That's 1. And 2, again, it's in an up and coming area. I know for me, when I was looking, there was a program, they were offering like $10,000 down in assistance, and it was in zip codes that I really didn't want to live in. I went and I looked at them. I also moved not too far from where I grew up. I was very familiar with this area, and that's just where I wanted to stay. Obviously, as a single mom, I wanted to be close to my parents because they were my biggest support, and I wasn't going to move far away from them because I needed them, and I still do. Well, now as they get older, they kind of need me, but that's going off topic. But I was very familiar with the area I was moving into, and I knew the zip codes that they had offering the assistance program. I didn't want to be in those zip codes, so I wasn't able to take advantage of down payment assistance like that. But there are some that you might be able to. I know for me, I was able to qualify for a grant and it was an actual grant. You know, some of them say, you know, they'll give you a grant, but you have to pay it back if something happens, like I just said. And mine wasn't that. It was the lender gave me that just for that, because they had it to give for in their program. So I would definitely say do your research, because not all mortgages are the same. Also, everybody doesn't approve for the same thing. I know for me, I had a car and I was trying to pay down my car, and I had only a year left on my car. So I went with the lender who, even though I had a year left, they didn't include that in my debt to income ratio. They included the loan as a part of my credit history to show that I had, you know, a really good history paying that loan, and I was making the payments on time still, but they didn't use that amount against me. So, and then when I bought my house, shortly after that, I paid off the car, so I didn't have that debt anyway, you know, and that's always a good thing too. I know right now I'm preparing to buy a house, and I'm going to have to look at paying off. First, I'm going to have to pay off a lot of debt, but I have a brand new Toyota RAV4, so I'm going to have to look at how I'm going to go about that, because I really don't want that debt on my debt to income ratio when I go looking for my house. So, you know, that's just something to think about. I would definitely say talk to the credit institution first, not the credit institution, the mortgage lender first, and see what they say, because that's who's going to offer you the best product, or the best rates, and the best overall loan. So personal finances are different, so you have to do what's personal for you at the end of the day. We're on tip number 4. For tip number 4, I would say do your research. I remember when and I'm talking about research on the people that you're working with. When I was working with, I went through a few realtors. One was non-responsive, one didn't take me out, and I had another one that didn't listen to me. So I was young, and another thing you learn about the real estate market when you're trying to get a house is that people will take advantage. You know, they want to sell a house. You know, it's a little bit more personal for you. Well, it's way more personal for you because not only is this the biggest, I don't want to say investment, the biggest purchase you'll ever make, but they do this every day, and this is how they get paid. They have to sell. So I would say do your research when it comes to the realtor that you're choosing. A lot of them require you to sign an agreement, so you really want to feel comfortable signing that. I know for the most part the agreement might say something like, if I show you a house and, you know, we decide not to work together and you buy that same house with somebody else, then you owe me a commission. So you have to really make sure that you feel comfortable signing whatever documentation they give you. Make sure that you're comfortable with the realtor that you're working with. In addition to that, you need to research the people like the inspectors or the the inspectors and the appraisers. You should be researching them as well. A lot of the times the realtor will offer people that they work with. I know for me, I was offered an inspector and I was kind of just over it. I had a short sale and it was a long process, and I remember I just didn't want to do all the extra work. I would say start doing that stuff before. When you're looking for your realtor, look at your inspector, look at your appraiser. The inspector I did have, he seemed like a pretty nice person, but shortly after I moved in, there were a lot of things that I noticed that were wrong with my house that I wish I would have known before. For example, shortly after I moved in, after a week or two, I had no hot water. And then when I went downstairs to the basement, there was water everywhere. So I had to call the electricity company out, and they said that I need a new water heater, in so many words. So my dad and his friend, they ended up replacing the water heater. But, you know, I don't know if he would have known that that was going to happen. But I know I think my dad told me, he said, well, you know, water heaters only last but so many years. So he could have said, hey, this water heater is maybe 8 or 10 years old. You might need another one soon. So that was one thing that I wish I would have known. And it's a lot of things that you just learn as you go. So when I buy my next house, I'll just know these things. But another thing that happened, there was water in the bathroom downstairs on the ceiling. And I was concerned about that because it was wet when I came. And I was like, okay, when the inspector came, I asked him about it. He did like a test, and he said, well, you know, it's dry right now. They must have fixed it. And the reality is they didn't fix it. It's something equivalent to like a washer that has to go on a pipe. That's in essence what it was, but it's the piping. Something needed to be changed on the pipings, and they never changed that. So a few months later, I had that same issue, and that's when I realized, okay, it was never changed. This was the issue. I also had it was leaking in my basement door, which is a whole thing right now. We have mold down there that we had to get rid of. We had mold that we had to get rid of, but what I was told was I'll probably need a new patio door because it was leaking. And the thing is, it's not just a new patio door. I have a balcony, and then I have a patio in the basement. The balcony door and the patio door both needs to be changed out, but that wall is going to have to be replaced because there's so much water damage. I didn't know that when I bought my house, and of course I didn't see a lot of this stuff when I was looking because I didn't know. I didn't know to look for it. All I knew that there was water, and I assumed, oh, there's a leak. Is it a big leak, or is it, you know, a cosmetic leak that I can repair? It'll be fine. And you know, that was a big leak. I wish I would have known that. When I think I've said this plenty of times before, but I do need a new roof. And when we were looking, I was told, oh, your roof it is about 11 years old, but it should last you another 15 years. They made it with good materials. That's a lie. I had a roofer come out maybe a year or two ago, and I know it needs to be done. Hopefully it can get done this year, but these things are not cheap. But when he came out, he told me that I need a new roof, and he said it's not like a hailstorm happened, and like it's not an act of God. It's literally, I need a new roof. Like it's wear and tear. You've needed a new roof since you moved in. So these are things that I wish I would have known, and I would have had a better peace of mind had I did that research myself. Even if, you know, none of these things he could have seen, which I highly doubt. But going forward, I'm obviously going to do my own research, and I'm going to get somebody who's going to vet for me. I also didn't go to the appraisal. That was another thing that my friend, I don't even know if I really looked at the appraisal, to be honest, because in my mind, the appraiser was just going to appraise the house and say, yes, they're offering a fair price, because that's pretty much what they tell you. You're getting an appraisal to make sure you're paying a fair price for your home. And the reality is, I remember one of my girlfriends, she went when the appraiser came, and she said that the appraiser told her things that the inspector didn't. So I kind of regret not going to that, but honestly, it was just a lot going on, and I know better for next time. So I would say do your research on the people that you will be working with throughout this process. And it doesn't stop there. There's other people involved that you can research, but those are the main ones that you really should be looking at. And the lender, like I said before, making sure you get a good lender, a good product. Okay, so for number 5, it's going to be don't get emotional. When you're out looking for a house, you will quickly realize what you can and cannot afford. And you're going to see what you can get for your money, and that's what you're going to go after. If you see a house and you can't afford it, no. If you see a house and it's marked a certain price, but you've seen other things in that same price that has more to offer than that, don't just get desperate. Don't just, oh, well, I'll just take it because, I feel like I can get. No, I remember I was looking at houses. Some houses required a lot of work. Obviously, my house does require some work that I wish I would have known when I bought my house. But there were houses that were really like they had pipes missing because they were on the market for so long and people stole the pipes. There were houses where it was obvious damage, obvious water damage, the carpets needed to be replaced. It wasn't move-in ready, some of these homes. And I remember looking at them thinking, yeah, no, I'm not going to buy this. Because one, I wanted a move-in ready home for my baby. And there's also, I think it's a 234 loan. I could be wrong. I'll look it up, and if I said it right, I'll just put it in here what the loan's called. But there's a loan where it's like a rehab loan where you can buy the house and the bank will give you extra money to put towards the cost of fixing up the house. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to work in a project. I didn't want to do that. If I didn't have my baby at the time, Aria was only like 1 or 2 years old. If I didn't have her at the time, then yeah, I probably would have been more inclined to do something like that. But for the sake of us, I just wanted something I can move into that was clean and put together, and I didn't have to do a lot, and I didn't want to stress. Being a single mother was already stress enough. Didn't want to go through any of that. So I just decided to, be smart with your money. Just like anything else. If you see a shirt and this shirt has polyester, but you can get the same thing, you could pay the same price for a satin shirt. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, it depends on which one. If you like polyester, okay, but I'm probably going to go for the satin shirt. Depending on what I'm trying to do, it looks better. And that might not be the best analogy, so you know what I mean, though. Like, go get the most bang for your buck. In addition to that, you don't want to get emotional if you're. I've seen people, they bid on auction houses, and they get into a bidding war, and then they end up spending more money on a house that's not even worth what they just spent. And it's because you get caught up in it. It's like, oh no, it's a good deal, it's a good house, I don't want it to go. And then you bid so much on it, and it's like, oh my goodness, like you have instant regret. Or even when I was looking for a house, there was a house that was out there, and the person who outbid me, they bid $40,000 extra on the house. It wasn't worth $40,000 extra at the time. Now it probably is, because my house has gone up. I'm sitting on $150K in equity, and in 7 years, no, I haven't put $150K on this house. That's just how much the value of my house has increased since I've bought it. So in the long run, that might have made sense for them, but I know the people who bought my house before I did, they bought their house for more than I did, hence a short sale. A short sale is when somebody buys the house for more and they have to sell it for whatever reason, and the market value for the house is less than what they bought it for, and they're asking the bank, hey, can you forgive the cost? So let's say you buy a house for $30,000, and you know that the house goes down, there's a crash or something, the house goes down, now your house is only worth $20,000. Let's say you only paid $50,000 on the house. So if the house is only selling for $200,000, you still owe another $50K. Then you go to the bank and you're like, hey, listen, I ain't got it. And the bank is going to try and sell it at whatever the market value is. So if it's 200, they're going to try and sell it at 200. And you know, you don't get anything out of that. You don't get the $50K you put into it. You don't get anything. You get to walk away. I think sometimes with the short sale, you might have to put some type of money up as a buyer. I think, I don't know, I could be wrong. I think because a lot of the times you have to prove that you have some type of hardship as to why you can't afford to do it. And at the end of the day, you know, I listen, this ain't what I bought it for, so no. Like, I think that's just a bizarre concept. But that's also like me, you know, I bought my house for less than what it's worth, and now I'm up, which is really fortunate for me. That is a blessing for me. Even though my house requires all this work, and even with the work it requires, I could actually take out a loan on the equity of my house to get that work done. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm saving as much as I can towards it, but it's also an option, you know. It's good to have options. My fourth tip would be continue to save. As I said before, sometimes, you know, they might tell you you don't have to put anything down, or you only have to put a little bit of money down. I think for a VA loan, you don't have to put anything down. You don't have to worry about that. But for regular conventional loans, if, you know, they might tell you, oh, you only have to put 3.5% down, and then something happens and you might have to put some extra money on top of that down. And sometimes if you don't have it, well, not sometimes, but if you don't have it, you're not going to get the house. So I would say always save up more money. And then, like I said before, my water heater went out. I had to pay to fix that. Sometimes you get into the house and there's other issues that come up aside from just, you know, having the money to move, having the money for furniture. You want to have money because whatever happens, this is your house. You can't just send it back. So definitely save up more money for not just buying the house, but for after you buy the house. So you have these things in place. Even sometimes, you know, you might want to have a home warranty. I know some people have that. When I was buying my house, that was something I had to actually let go. When I didn't have enough money at closing, they said, oh, well, you know, the home warranty, you know, you could pretty much X that out, and I would get a credit for that, which was funny because the way it was said to me, it was like, oh, the house comes with a home warranty. I didn't know that pretty much that was, you know, it wasn't free. It didn't just come with it. It was already paid for. So, you know, that was whatever, or it was coming out of my pocket in so many words. But, you know, you live and learn. But I would say for several reasons, save up. Make sure you have some extra money saved up, not just for furniture. Save up. You know, you are the landlord of that property now. You should have $1,000 saved up, and for anything that might happen in the house. I think a lot of expenses are going to be a little bit more than $1,000, but there are some, you know, the water heater was less, you know, and if you're handy, you can do some other things for less. Like, you know, but my dad has changed the toilet in the house. My boyfriend, he's had to do some plumber work in the house as well. He's had to change out the sink, and he's had to fix things with the other toilet we had, and we're going to change out another toilet. So, you know, just make sure you have money on hand for all these exciting homeowner projects that just pop up out of nowhere. My seventh tip would be to advocate for yourself. Always advocate for yourself. Like I said, this is honestly when I learned really to stand up for myself by any means necessary during this process. Because at the end of the day, these people only get paid if they sell you a house. The realtor. They only get paid if they sell you a house. And sometimes they'll sell you anything. They don't have to live there. They don't like, they're fine. So when you're out looking, you have to be able to say, you know what, I don't want that. You know what, this doesn't sound funny. This doesn't sound right. This sounds a little iffy. I remember one time I went to a house and I didn't even go inside. Like, my realtor, they gave her a code. It was the wrong code. But when we pulled up, I didn't like the neighborhood. I didn't like the appearance, the outward appearance of the home. It was unkept. And she was like, I'm going to call. We was out there for like 5 minutes. And I said, I know. And then she said, well, do you want to come back another day? I said, no, I do not see myself and my child living here. So you learn quickly what you want and what you don't want, but you also just speak up for yourself. I remember, again, I had a short sale. I remember towards the end of my waiting period, because they try to make you wait out when you're trying to buy a short sale. They try to make you wait out, and then with the market, they're hoping for it to increase. And then when it does, they'll come back and say, oh, well, we want an extra $10,000. And that's what they did with me. They said, you know, we want an extra whatever amount of money. And that's when your realtor comes in and they counter it. I said no. And I stood firm on that. I was not about to give up $10K. I'm sorry. I'm already giving up. I already went to the top of my loan amount. I was paying more for my house than what I wanted to. And that was just because of the market I was in, because the market was not great. It was turning. It was very much a seller's market. Before I bought my house, we were in a buyer's market, and it seemed like when I started to get myself together, it slowly changed to a seller's market, and it's been a seller's market ever since. So when I was buying my house, I had to go to the top of my budget to make sure I was going to get, and I probably didn't have to go to the top of it, but to ensure that I got the house, that's what we did. So after that, no, I'm not giving you extra money. This is what I said I wanted for this house. And, you know, my realtor fought for me, and they ended up keeping it like it is. But also, again, if anybody knew that the house needed this much work, that could have been said too. Hey, you know, the house needs a new roof. Let's deduct $6,000. The house needs new gutters. Let's deduct $4,000. The house has water damage. Lord help me, I don't know how much that's going to be, but we can deduct that too. So just advocate for yourself. You are the one who has to live in that house. You're the one who is going to have to pay that mortgage. Don't let nobody pressure you into doing something that you don't want to do. At the end of the day, everybody is working for you. And I know people get frustrated. People, you know, I don't care. You have to do what's right for you. And it is frustrating because there are some times when you will go out with somebody all this time and then you'll decide, you know what, I don't want to buy a house. And unfortunately, that's how they make their money, as if they sell houses. So if you decide you don't want to buy a house, they kind of just wasted their time, their money. And, you know, it's hard, but that's also the hustle. So you kind of know what you sign up for as well. But don't feel obligated to buy something that you don't want. I remember there were plenty of times where I was in a situation where I was like, you know, I don't want this. And people were trying to, oh, well, no, you know, you could do this. You know, I could see you doing. No, I know what I want. You're not going to make me question my mind. That's not something that's going to happen. So always advocate for yourself, I would say. That's the 7th tip. Now, as a bonus, I'm going to tell you my biggest regret when it came to buying a house. Actually, not when it came to buying a house. After I bought my house, my biggest regret was not refinancing my house when the market was at an all-time low. I don't know if we will ever see that again. And it took me a long time to get over it. Now, to start, refinancing has always had this negative connotation. And I was like, oh, I'll never do it. I just don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. But I remember when the market was at 1 or 2%, I could have refinanced my house, and that could have changed the trajectory of me paying off this house in a shorter period of time. Now, I don't plan on paying this house off myself. Within the next year or two, I would like to buy a new house. I would like to rent out this house, and I plan on keeping it forever, but I would like to rent it out and pay it off that way. I would like for this to become an investment property. And that was always the plan. I actually planned on moving out before now, but, you know, life be life. And so this is where we're at. But, you know, the goal doesn't change. The plan might have changed a little bit, but the goal is still the same. The goal is still to make this an investment property, to rent it out and accumulate money that way. I also would like to move into my dream house soon. I'm not getting any younger, neither is my baby, so I'm just ready for that phase of my life to come as well. But yeah, I remember when interest rates were at an all-time low, and it didn't hit me until, like I said, now I'm looking at buying a home, and when interest rates were at an all-time high, when you're looking at 7% interest rate and you're seeing how much more a month it is, that's when I was like, well, let me see how much it would have been if I would have refinanced my house, and you see how much you could have saved. That hurt my heart. So if that ever does happen, don't hesitate. Also, if you did buy a house and it has PMI insurance, like I said, right now my house has gone up in value, so it's more than 20% paid down at this point. So if you had PMI insurance, a lot of people, because our houses have gone up in value, if you can call and get PMI removed, because your house is now, it appraises for more, so you can get the PMI approved. And PMI is when it's insurance for when you buy a house but you don't have the 20% to put down. So you put like 3.5% down or 5% down, but you also pay PMI every month up until, and then once you hit the 20% down payment mark, once your house has the 20% in, you can refinance it. Not refinance, I'm sorry. You can get PMI removed. So, once you get to that point, you can do that. I don't have PMI on my house, but I would have done that. I can't really tell you why I don't. I just know some of them do, some of them don't. So I would just look into that. I hope you enjoyed this info session when it comes to buying a house as a single mom. At the end of the day, just remember, if I can do it, you can do it as well, if that's what you truly want to do. I know right now it is a hard time. Like I said, I bought my house 7 years ago, but when I bought my house 7 years ago, it was still difficult. It wasn't the same thing, but it was difficult. I think right now we just have to change our plan. Don't change the goal, just change the plan, change how you go about doing things, and everything's going to work out just fine. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you like videos like this. I do plan on doing another video in depth about the repairs that I need, and I do plan on doing some videos about the home buying process as me and my boyfriend prepare to buy our next house. We're going to obviously have to fix this house up, but then also, the things we're going to have to do. We're going to have to save, or continue to save. We're going to get out of debt, and I'm just going to show you the things that we're doing, because like I said, I've done this before. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're going to do the same things that we did before, and we're going to all win. Let's do this together. Bye.